the aim of tonight is we're going to have a couple of demonstrations. So we're going to have the first part of the agenda will be about Scottish Government, from Scottish Government rather, and they're going to talk about some of the sort of alternative mapping tools and things like that that are available. We'll have a bit from Nature Scot and their biodiversity app, and then we'll kick into a sort of panel discussion.
Thanks very much, Donna, and thank you very much for inviting us along again tonight. And apologies to Indy, who's had to suffer my voice for the 2 or 3 sessions that I've had to now. Under the Scottish Government's Future Agriculture Reform Programme and the Vision for Agriculture, at least half of funding for farming and crofting in the future will be targeted towards outcomes for biodiversity gain and climate mitigation. So as part of the whole farm plan, we're wanting farmers and crofters to do the review, holistic review of their croft and farm businesses, and then look for opportunities for improvement in the future. So with the biodiversity audit, what we've designed is, or what we've hoped to implement is a simple way to help farmers and crofts understand what biodiversity habitats are on their farms and crofts. We know for many, this will be the first time that they've had to face it. They've maybe heard about habitat maps, biodiversity audits, and been scared that they need to employ specialist advice, huge costs to themselves, and potentially, if we're looking at the historical agri-environment schemes, for little gain. So the approach we've come up with is to help you do it yourselves, to allow you to give you that power, to hopefully encourage you to do it yourself, and to get that little bit understanding of what actually is on your farms and crofts, and identify ways that you can use the future support framework to help you manage them or improve their condition going forward. So I'll not talk too much. I'll hand over to Wayne and co to give you a demonstration of our online system from ARPA's system. What I'll do, if Nathan allows me enough time at the end, I'll talk about a non-electronic version or non-technical version, i.e. alternative ways that doesn't include technology, that you can complete your habitat map and make it simple. So one thing I probably didn't touch upon is, under the whole farm plan, we call it a biodiversity audit, but what that actually means is a habitat map. So it's identifying at least one of the habitats that's in each of your fields and producing a map for that. And we're going to show you 3 or 4 different ways to do it tonight. And it only, for the current purposes, or for 2025, all that means is just your croft. Don't worry about your common grazings. We'll work with others on solutions, how we're going to map common grazings going forward. But for the time being, for 2025, we're just looking at the habitats that are on your croft. And I will stop speaking now and hand over to Nathan and Wayne to hopefully demonstrate our online mapping service. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I'll just share my screen. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan. I'm a member of the land mapping team within the Scottish Government, and tonight I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of how you can submit your habitat maps using the Rural Payments and Services map viewer. So I'll begin by just showing you where you can find some of the documentation that you could find helpful when creating your habitats. First, we have some general guidance about the whole farm plan, and this can be found from the Rural Payments and Services website by going to the Future of Agricultural Support section. Within that, there's the whole farm plan guidance, and the areas connected to the habitat mapping are the Biodiversity Audit, which you can click on to find some further information. And also there's some useful information within the annexes section. So if I click on that, then I have a series of annexes relating to each of the different habitat groups. So for example, if I just click on the grassland habitats, that will jump to a table breaking down each of the different grassland categories that I can select, and a brief description about to assist selecting the correct one. So also in the Rural Payments and Services website, there's some documentation that can help you with using the land mapping system. And this can be found by clicking on the land mapping system section and going to the LIPIS guidance documents and tutorial videos. and then going down to habitat feature change, which is 4.4. So within that, we have a full habitat mapping guidance Word document that you can click and download. And we also have a series of links to YouTube videos. So these are all 1 or 2 minute long YouTube videos that will break down the process of creating, editing, and submitting your habitat maps. Okay, so to create your habitat proposals online, you need to log into your RPNS portal. So you do this in exactly the same way you would if you were accessing your SAF claim or your communications log, and it's exactly the same login details. So I'll just log in here. And from that homepage, if you just click into your business name, you access the dashboard. So habitats are submitted using the editor, which is linked to the map viewer. So this is accessed by clicking on the locations tab up at the top and then going down to map. And if I click on that, it will open up a new window with the map viewer. So the map viewer can be used for a range of tasks, including viewing your maps of your current eligible areas, for submitting online land maintenance forms, or for online ecological focus area maps. And more recently, we've added the function to create online habitats. So on this new page, each location code that is linked to your business or that you're mandated to view will be displayed on the My Locations tab on the left-hand side. So let's just load it up now. So to access a habitat case, I first need to choose the location code I wish to edit. So in this case, I only have one. I click beneath the actions heading, there's an arrow. I click on that. I can then choose to edit habitats. So this again opens up a new window with the habitat editor. So to create habitats for your whole business, you'll need to do this separately for each one of your location codes. It can't be done at the BRN level. Okay. So before I go into showing you how to use the mapping tools, if you don't wish to use the online tools to digitize your habitats, you can still use the system to upload a set of pre-drawn maps or a list of habitats that you wish to have assigned to certain parcels. And when you submit this to the land mapping team, our team will then take that data and then draw the habitat map for you. So the process for uploading these maps, these pre-drawn maps, is to go up to the top of the top toolbar, and there's an Upload Documents button. And if you click that, it opens up a new window, and you can just drag and drop your pre-existing maps into that file section and click Submit. So that loads them onto the case, and then you can just click Finish, and then there's another window to finish again, which I'll show you a little bit later, and that will submit it to the land mapping team. So if you are sending in a map, please ensure it's annotated and it's clear which habitat should be assigned to which field. Alternatively, if you'd rather not use the online system at all, then you can still send in your maps to the land mapping team email address, and we'll be able to digitize these maps for you. So the habitat editor is laid out with a range of tabs over on the left-hand side. There's the main mapping screen in the center, and then there's a range of toolbars along the top. So over on the left, we first have the parcel tab, which will list all the different parcels within your location code. Then there's the Habitat Proposals tab, which will contain each habitat as you, a list of each habitat as you create them. And then there's a Layers tab, which contains a series of layers that you can display on the map screen. And you can also use some of these layers to assist with the habitat mapping process. So just going back to the Habitat Proposals tab, initially, the only habitats that will exist will be the farm boundary habitats. So I've got 2 of them here. So every habitat that you create should exist within the farm boundary. And if it's necessary, the farm boundary can be modified to include habitats that are out with the land you currently have registered. So this land is known as white space. So the farm boundary was created in 2023, and it was based on the land parcels that were currently registered on our system at that time, and it doesn't automatically update. So therefore, if there have been any changes to your fields since then, the farm boundary will no longer match. But the farm boundary, when you submit your habitat proposals, the farm boundary is something that we will look into in the land mapping team, and we will sort that for you when we receive your proposals. So there are 3 different types of habitat that can be digitized. There's area, linear, and point. So I'll show you how to create each one. So I'll first jump to this parcel here, and in this one I'll assign a grassland habitat that covers the whole of the parcel. So to do that, I just need to select the new habitat button up in the top toolbar. And with that selected, I can simply just start clicking around the parcel. And each time I click, it will add a new node. And I can do that to draw a habitat area. So when I'm finished, I can just go back and click on the very first node to close it. If you're not happy with any of the points that you've selected, you can click and drag them or add additional points to your lines. And we also have some tools up at the top toolbar. So there's an erase button, so you can just click that, drag and drop, drag over the line to erase sections you're unhappy with, and they can be redrawn. So in this case, I've not drawn it exactly accurately. I've just roughly drawn around the parcel. But whenever you submit your proposal to the land mapping team, we will tidy that up so that it matches the boundary more accurately. So I can also reset to remove all my current edits. So I can draw that one again, but this time a bit more accurately, and I can use the trace tool. So if I turn that on, I can click near my field boundary, and it will jump to the boundary and trace it exactly. And when the line appears orange, that indicates that it's traced successfully. So again, if I draw that all the way around and turn that whole line orange, then that means that I've drawn that parcel exactly matching the boundaries. So the final and slightly more advanced tool is the construct polygon tool. And this is a really quick way of capturing areas on your map. So with that selected, I can just hold the control button, click the area I want to add my habitat to, and that will add a blue line around the outside of my field. And I can click OK to turn that into my habitat shape. So once you're happy with the habitat that you've drawn, you then need to add some attributes down the bottom left-hand corner. So the whole farm plan guidance documentation on rural payments and services that I showed earlier will be able to assist you in picking the correct attributes. So in the notes section, there needs to be a minimum of 10 characters descriptive note. So I'll just quickly add that. You can select whether it's nature rich or not, select the habitat cover percentage, and then select the habitat type from the drop-down list. Okay, so to finalize the habitat, you just need to click the confirm button. So there's a green button down at the bottom left, or there's a confirm button up in the top toolbar. And that saves the habitat proposal, and it also adds it to the habitat proposals tab. So at this point, the habitats I've created have been saved. So it's possible to come back to this later. So I can close these windows and open them up at a later date. And these habitats that I've drawn will still be there. So the next thing I'll show you is just using some of the other layers to create a habitat. So for this example, I'll turn on the current ineligible features, and I'll use the red ineligible features to copy that, and I'll create a scrub habitat in this bottom corner. So the same process as before. I'll select the new habitat button up at the top toolbar, and I'll use the construct polygon tool to quickly select the area that I want to create a habitat for. Click OK, and then add some attributes. Like nature rich, the habitat cover, and the habitat type from the drop-down list. So give that one a scrub and click confirm to save it. And again, that's added that scrub habitat to my habitat proposals list. So the next, I'll turn off my LIPIS data just now. The next habitat type I'll show you is the linear habitat. And these are created in a very similar way to the area habitats, but instead of clicking the new habitat button, I just need to click the new linear habitat button. So down the eastern side of this large field, there is a hedge. So I'm going to map that just now using the trace tool to follow the boundary. So I can turn on the trace tool, click down the eastern boundary where the hedge is, and then add some attributes. Choose the habitat type. So I'll give it the hedge type and decide whether it's nature rich. And click confirm to save it. So finally, the last habitat type is the point habitat type. And these are created by selecting the new point habitat button up at the top. So if I turn that on, I can then just select anywhere in the screen where I want to add my point habitat, and then add my attributes. Select whether it's nature rich, and then choose the habitat type. So for point habitats, you can only choose general point feature or invasive non-native plant species. And then click confirm to save it. So once your habitats have been drawn, or if they already exist from a previous mapping session, then you can use some of the LIPIS tools to edit them. So if you've ever used the online land maintenance form tools, these will be quite familiar. So if I want to edit the scrub habitat that I created earlier, then I first need to select it. So I'll do that by clicking the select habitat button up at the top, clicking on the habitat. And because my scrub is within the farm boundary, I need to choose which one I want to edit. So I'll select the scrub habitat. And then I have 4 tools to the right of the creation tools I can use to edit this habitat. So the first one is the reshape topology button. And if I turn that on, I get access to the same tools I had at the beginning when I was first creating that habitat. So with that tool selected, I then have access to all the nodes, and I can reshape that habitat or erase nodes as needed. And I also have access to the attributes at the bottom left, and I can change these to whatever I need them to. And clicking Confirm will save any of my changes. And it's the same process for the other tools. So first select the habitat, and then we also have the split tool to divide that habitat into multiple. You can merge it with an adjacent habitat, or there's the delete button to delete that habitat altogether. And if you make any mistakes, or if you want to undo anything, there are the buttons next to it to undo and redo your changes. So if at any point during the habitat creation process you have any issues, then you can always contact the land mapping team using our email address. We can offer some support. So we're also able to access your draft changes using our online system. So we can make some edits for you to fix things. However, we're not allowed to submit these habitat proposals for you. Any changes we make, you would then need to go back in and submit the online habitat. So when you've digitized all the habitats that you want, the next stage is to click the validate button. So there's a validate all yellow button up at the top left, and this will just run some checks on the habitats that you've created. And the results of those checks are shown in the parcels tab down at the bottom. So we get the results down here. So in this case, everything is validated successfully. However, there are two different types of validation error that can appear, advisory and mandatory. So when you have advisory errors only, and these will appear if you've drawn a habitat out with your farm boundary, then you will still be able to submit your proposals. However, there's a risk that we might need to contact you for further information, which could slow down the mapping process. The mandatory errors, however, these need to be addressed before you can submit the habitat case, and these will occur if you've missed out some of the attributes. So when everything has validated successfully, you can then click the Finish button, so the green button up at the top left. And this will open up a new pop-up window. And this gives you the option to download a set of maps of your draft proposals. So you can do that by just clicking the Print Preview button. And you can choose to either wait for these maps to generate, or you can enter your email address and click Notify Me when the print is ready, and you'll receive an email to tell you they're ready to download. So I've got a set of pre-created maps just to show you here. So 3 files will download. You'll first get an overview map of your entire farm. Then there's a full set of maps, which will zoom into certain areas of your farm. And finally, there's the habitat table, which will give you a series of tables of each of the different habitat types that you've created. Okay. So when you have your draft maps, you can then click the Finish button. So it's the blue button there to submit your proposals to the land mapping team. We will then assess these proposals and draw them into the live data. And when that's complete, you will receive a notification on your Rural Payments and Services communications log to say that that's been completed. So it's really important that you make sure you click Finish. Otherwise, those proposals won't be submitted to us. We won't receive any notifications. And please make sure you do submit all your habitat mapping before the 15th of May, to avoid being late for the 2025 submission. Okay, let's close that for now. So once you've received your confirmation that your maps have been completed, you can then download your habitat maps or shapefiles from the map viewer. So you can do that by going back to the map viewer page that I had up earlier. So in this page, there are two buttons along the top toolbar. The first one is the print icon, which is a printer icon. If you click that, you can then select Export Habitat Maps. You then need to enter your location code and click Continue. And you can then select which habitat groups you wish to add to your map. So we generally recommend a maximum of about 3 habitat groups to make sure your maps are legible. So in this case, I'll just add grasslands, woodlands, and linear, and click Continue. And then you then have the option to select which background mapping you would like. So you can either show aerial photography mapping at the back, ordnance survey mapping, or you can choose to have no mapping at all. And if you click Continue, you'll again have the same process, same window as with the draft maps, where you can either enter your email address and wait for a notification, or you can wait for the maps to download. So these maps are very similar to the draft maps, but they'll just be the finalized ones. So again, we have an overview map of the whole farm, and then some more detailed maps of each section of the farm, and then a habitat table. So we'll just close that. To download shapefiles to use on your own GIS system, you can just click the download button, and then there's the option to download habitat shapefiles, and then you can enter your location code and click the export button. So that's really everything I wanted to show you today. So as I mentioned earlier, within the Rural Payments and Services website, there are a range of tutorial videos, as well as the full habitat mapping guide to help with any questions. Plus, you're always able to contact the land mapping team email address if you have any queries.
Thanks very much, Nathan. So if you don't feel comfortable do it that way, or you don't have access to technology or decent Wi-Fi or anything at all, what you can also do is you can either just create, if you've just got a single habitat within each of your fields, what you can do is you can either just create a list of all your field numbers and just mark against each field number what the main habitat is within each field, or you can request a copy of a paper copy of your map to be sent to you, either by contacting your local ARPID office or contacting the land mapping team, and they'll send you a paper copy by post. Nathan and Wayne probably keep me right. I would suggest, I did a trial of it. I would suggest if you are asking for a paper copy, you ask for the aerial photography copy and also one with no detail in the back, so that if you're creating your own paper map, you use aerial photography to look at your fields and you can identify, you'll know yourself what's in them, but using aerial photography data, you can identify what the habitats are. And on the blank copy that hasn't got any details on it, you can mark up your map of what the habitats are. The kind of key bit is to ensure that whatever colours you use or lines or hatching you use, you give a key to explain what each of them are to help Nathan and the rest of his team map it on your behalf. Once you've created that paper version, either your list of your field numbers with the habitats or create a coloured in version of your paper map, you can then either send it in direct to your local ARPID office, or send it direct to the land mapping team. So there's on the guidance, on the whole farm plan guidance under Biodiversity Audit, we've got the contact details for contacting the land mapping team by email and by post. But you've also got that option to send them direct to your local ARPID office, who will forward them on to to Nathan and his team.
Oh,
When he was filling in what he described as the nature-rich percentages, I wonder if you could explain what that was.
Yes, and so it wasn't the nature-rich percentage. That was the how complete it is. So is it 100% scrub? Because you can do the variation. So those percentages were how much scrub was in that shape. Because you could draw a shape and say, well, that's only 50% scrub. So you choose that. So if it says greater than 90%, that's classed as 100%. So similar to the LMF and the ineligible feature side. And nature rich is just yes or no, and it calculates it on the table.
okay. Jan, you've got your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to just clarify a point habitat. Is that something like a pond or a tree or something like that?
It's
What is a point?
it's a single sort of invasive species.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
Single thing.
Yeah, so it's like some rhododendron bushes or Himalayan balsam or something along those lines.
Right, okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's separate features for like covering bracken or scrub, but it's anything like that. There's also, I think there is also ones for single trees or for lines of trees, etc.
I was just wondering, see if you've got a small croft or field that's on, say, Macherland, and it's only that's just what's on the land is the Macherland. There's no pond or trees or anything. Is it a minimum, that you have to put in of different keys, if you know what I mean? Or say if it's literally just Macherland, is that okay to put that down?
Yeah, that's it. So it's just the minimum is one habitat per field, so that's perfect. Yeah, and that's sorry for stealing, but that's what we're trying to show is that it sounds daunting, but it's maybe not that daunting. This is probably one of the easier ones of the 5 for you to do, because you know what's there, and hopefully you've not got that many complex ones if it's just a single habitat you have to map.
So we'll move on now to Benji. So Benji's going to show us the NatureScot app.
Right, so I'm just very going to quickly give you a run through of what Farm Biodiversity Scotland is and then give you the demo. So we're providing a means to complete your biodiversity audit through either a mobile app version or a website version, available on the App Store and Play Store or through that website from the beginning of March 2025. And for those of you who've not heard of it yet, you might not know that we've done some testing with a group of farmers. So we had around 300 people sign up for the testing, and you can see the split there of farmer crofter and the distribution of those farms. And we had 231 people fully complete their habitat maps. And what we've got from that is a wealth of feedback from farmers and crofters. And as a result, we are improving what we've got and making it even more user-friendly as a result. And this is just because I can't share what the app looks like through the computer. So I'm going to show you the web version tonight. But just to show you some screenshots here of what the app looks like. On the left here is an example of a map. And then there's also the ability to do some condition assessments on there, as well as on the website to assess the condition of the habitats that you've got. So this is Farm Biodiversity Scotland, the website, and this is our homepage. When you first come on here, you've got some information here on how to get started. And these links will take you through to our help and guidance page, where there are some videos and there'll be an exhaustive list of written documents on the various tasks that you might want to complete, such as assigning a habitat to a field, drawing lines and points, what if you've got more than a habitat in a field, if you wanted to go past that minimum standard, these sorts of things, and also some assistance there on what habitat to choose and so on. And down here, there will be updates sent to you about perhaps what version your phone needs to be, or what new assessments are there, what new functionality may come about during that time. So down the left-hand side, you've got this menu, which will look slightly different, but it will have home, farms, and then help and guidance in there. So we'll just go straight to farms. So what you'll have here, if you've got one business, is just one line. And if you've got more than one business, you've got 2 lines, or 3 lines, depending on how many businesses you've got on here. So in order to enter the map to edit, you press Overview. And this opens the overview page where you can see any mapping that you had done to that point. You can look at individual fields by clicking on it, and you can even assign habitats from here, and begin other tasks, like maybe doing an assessment. You can also add species to individual fields here. So how do we actually complete a map and do the biodiversity audit? Once you're into this, you press Edit Map. And when that's loaded, because of the way that you've signed in, so when you log into Farm Biodiversity Scotland, you'll put your name, your BRN and your MLC, as well as your email address. And from there, we'll do some checks, and then we'll bring your field boundaries across into our system. So when you get to this point, you should be seeing your farm or croft. So these green areas are the fields, and by simply selecting one, by clicking on it, and then up here you'll see select habitat type, habitat or type here. You press on this little down arrow and you select a habitat, and you can just go through clicking on fields and clicking on the menu, and then giving habitats. And one of the things that we've got from users was if they've got multiple fields that have got the same habitat, they'd like to select them all at once. So we're bringing in that functionality. If you wish to draw a line feature, a linear feature, you've got this menu down the left, so you can draw areas, you can draw lines. Hovering over that, you'll see we've got a little list there. So none, that means that you've drawn a line that's not got a habitat associated. And then you've got dry stone dike, field margins, hedges, lines of trees, rivers and streams. So in this example, I'll show you how to draw a dry stone dike. And you can zoom in using the roller on your mouse, or on your using your mouse pad on your laptop. So here you can see that there's a dry stone dike running through this this field here. So I'm going to select dry stone dike and just simply click, 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 and then double click to finish. And that has drawn the line feature. And in the same way, you've got point. And again, it's going to have this drop-down menu that's under development in the next couple of weeks. But for now, I'll show you the list that we've got there. So if we just assume there's something here, we drop our point, we select that point, and then again, the same way that we've assigned a habitat to an area, you've got your menu here. So we've got points for bracken, general point feature, invasive non-natives and scheduled monuments. In the context of bracken, we're looking at an area of less than 100 by 100 meters squared, or 0.01 hectare. Above that, you would have to map it as an area, and you can find that again in this menu here if you've drawn an area. So on the topic of white space that was brought up earlier, we've got a couple of ways that you can add that in. Firstly, you can just click on area and draw yourself a new area like that. And the other way is by using this tool, which we call the magic wand. And that works at a certain zoom level. So if you're zoomed right out, you'll see that it becomes grey and I can't select it. Need to go out a bit further. There we are. So that's now not available. But if I zoom back in, it becomes available. So when I click on that, it's going to produce a whole load of grey polygons like this, which if I hover over, have these red outlines. And by clicking on one of those, so we're going to take this forestry compartment here. If I click on that and then just press enter on the keyboard, that has now added that area into the farm so that I can select it and again provide a habitat. So those are the ways that you can assign a habitat to an area, draw a line and draw a point. So the three habitats. We've got functionality available that means that you can draw two habitats in a field, as demonstrated earlier as well. So for example, this compartment here, you can see there's some arable farming here and this sort of wetter heath area. So what I'm going to do is just split that into two areas so that I can map those separately. So by clicking on this, you can now see that the cut tool becomes available. And just like you would on a piece of paper, you start outside of that piece of paper, you come in and you click as you go across, click as many times as you want. And then when you want to finish that, you come back out the other side of the polygon, or the area, and you double click. And you'll now see that these are two separate compartments. And once again, I can assign these two separate habitats. So that's the way that we can split up areas. And the system still knows that that's the same field. So it's not splitting those into two fields. It still knows it's one field, but with two habitats. And there's one other way in which we can map an area within a field. So what we do is we're going to assume that there's a loch in here. We can just draw a shape where there might be a lochen or perhaps some woodland. And we can click on that, hold down Shift on your keyboard and click on the field that you want to cut from, and then press the cookie cutter. And again, we're simplifying that process for the launch. But what you can now see is that you've got two separate areas there. So once again, I'm going to assign those habitats. So you can see it's very quick to build up a picture. The other thing to show you is that we've got some additional background layers here. So one thing to note, particularly out west, is that cloud cover can obviously cause havoc with satellite imagery. So I know that there's an area just over here to the left, which has got some cloud cover. And if that's affecting your farm or croft, you can go to this layers here and come down and select aerial. And what that does is it just overlays another set of aerial imagery and gets rid of those clouds for you. If you want an OS map base, you can do the same just by clicking on OS map. We've also got designated areas that you can add in. All of this can then be exported, but what it will do is export the view that you've currently got here with the base map. So you need to decide what you'd like there. I'm just going to swap it back to aerial so that we can see this map nice and clearly. And all we need to do is go to export and export habitat mapping to PDF. Excuse me. And what we've now got, so let's pretend we've mapped the whole thing. We've now got ourselves a nice habitat map with a key down the side there. And that can then be exported and sent to the mapping team. The other thing to to highlight is that functionality of assessments. So I'll just very quickly show you one of those. I'm going to save and exit. When you save and exit, that will bring you back to your overview page. Just take a moment. So you'll now see that this overview page has updated with the work that we've just done. So you can save that and come back and chip away at this. So if you've got a larger property and you don't want to spend too long doing it, you can do it in short stints. So what I'm just going to show you now quickly is the habitat assessment. So clicking on this peatland area, we go to more information. You can press start assessment here. And as I said earlier, you can add species here to that field. So pressing start assessment, this just brings up a short condition assessment. And I'll just race through these questions. But you can see that they're sort of asking things about land management and the habitat, a little bit maybe about native species, non-native species, and these vary from habitat to habitat. And at the end of that, it just gives you a condition and gives you some gives you the reasons there. So it's what we call a RAG scoring, and it's good, amber, red, amber, green. And a few recommendations there as well. So that's a whiz-stop tour of the system. I think the last thing I've forgotten to mention here is if you've got multiple location codes, those will be available from this drop-down. So under your one business, when you come in, you can swap between your locations. So if you've got part of your croft in one area and another, you'll be able to swap between those here. So I think I've kept within time.
Lorna was asking, is the app an alternative to using the LIPIS system, or is it just a different way of accessing LIPIS, or are they linked? But Ian's responded to that and explained that it's an alternative, but they both use the LIPIS maps as the basis. The next question was, is the app available yet? So I don't think it's fully available yet, is it? But testing's finished.
It's not fully available yet, but it doesn't stop you from signing up. So you can download it, you can put in your details, and you'll basically sit in our waiting list. We will run our checks, and then come March, you'll get an email. You'll click in a link on that. It'll take you onto the website, and it'll open up for you. And it'll be the same process with the app. You can log in with the app, and then again sit on the waiting list, and then we'll send you the email. But from March onwards, you'll just be able to log in. It will still take a little bit of time whilst we run those checks.
Well, let's get into the discussion. I just thought maybe Nori and Liz, if you guys just want to say a quick hello, because you're joining the discussion, I think, from this point, but just so people know who you are. Liz, I can see you on my screen first. You want to just say a quick hi and explain who you are and where you are?
Yeah, Liz Phillips. I was brought up on a small holding on Mull, and I've been crofting on Skye for 25 years, and I was part of the testing of the phone-based app during the summer of 24.
Fabulous. And Nori?
Hi, Nori Russell. I work for the RSPB, and in recent years I've mainly worked on farmland, a lot of wader stuff, helping people into agri-environment, doing farm environmental assessments, and I manage a couple of staff up in Orkney and Shetland, with Shetland being one of the areas that trialled the app quite extensively through Natalie there. So I've seen it over its development as well. I'm here mainly to answer questions about habitats and species rather than taking questions about the app.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'm sure we'll not fire you any questions that you don't want. Okay, so I'm going to hand over then to Donald.
Thank you, Donna, and great to see so many people on the call tonight. Sorry I was a little bit late joining there, but with you now. And we had a number of similar questions around whether crofters can complete the biodiversity audit themselves. Now, I think that's probably been covered in the demonstrations. It's clear that crofters can, and the intention is that crofters do complete the biodiversity audit themselves. But I just wanted the panelists to maybe reflect on that a bit in two ways. What the thinking is behind crofters engaging with this themselves and doing the biodiversity audit themselves, but then also thinking about what the barriers might still be to them doing it themselves.
So we've got 17,000 farmers and crofters across Scotland. We reckon that 3/4 of them have had no engagement, involvement with biodiversity auditing, habitat mapping, or any types of things. So what we want this part to be, along with every other part of the whole farm plan, is that giving that ownership back to yourselves to do that kind of, I call it, it's a real cliche, is that step on the ladder, the first step in the ladder of that basic understanding of habitats, and that it's not a daunting task that can be done yourselves without having to engage with others. So that was that. It was that first rung on the ladder. Biodiversity, is going to play an important part in the future agricultural support model. So this is this early step in that kind of getting you on that journey to identify what can be potentially make up part of your farm payments going forward in the future.
On the barriers, Ian?
We've tried to come up with alternatives. So we've seen tonight two kind of ways to do it with using technology, and I kind of gave a brief overview of how to do it without technology. So we've tried to cover that. We'll continue to develop and learn as we go along. If we're getting feedback from likes of yourself, Donald, or likes from your members, you're hearing there's particular barriers, we'll try and improve. But we've tried to come up with alternative ways that don't involve technology, that relies on the good old pen and paper to help everyone try. That's the thing. And the key, probably the most important thing to know is there will be no penalties for there's no way of getting this wrong. So it is a learning curve. So this is the first step. So it's making that first attempt of looking at the basic habitats you've got and mapping them. But there will be no penalties applied for identifying the wrong habitat, for example.
Thanks for that answer, Ian. And I'll come to Benji next.
So I'd echo what Ian said there. It's really, really important that people can start to see what habitats they've got on their ground. See, age is a barrier I see there in the comments, but it's we've not so much seen that. We've done exhaustive testing over this summer with around 300 farmers and crofters, and the wealth of feedback that we've got has been that whilst it was initially something that people were scared of, by the end of it, everybody had produced something. Those that hadn't still gave us good feedback on why they'd not perhaps engaged as much because of either not having enough time to sit down and do a map at the computer, which does seem to come up a lot, and then also this whole factor of being scared. What if I map on a piece of ground that's not mine? What if I do the wrong habitats? And as Ian's just said, there's no penalties, there's no check. So it really is something that I think everyone here is on a video call. We're all on some sort of device. There are means and ways, and we're providing a lot of guidance. The same with the Scottish Government team. There's a lot of guidance there to help people. And the other thing with the NatureScot tool, we've got a get in touch button. So anybody that's struggling from at any point, they can get in touch with us, and we can help them through that process as we did through the testing. So we've overcome a lot of barriers during that testing, and I think most people that you would speak to came out of it with an improved knowledge of both habitats on their property, but also with some confidence around actually being able to produce a map and use technology to do so.
I'm going to just change that question around slightly before I come to Liz, and just to think about how when you were doing the app, how did you find it useful for your own croft? So we've heard from Scottish Government and Nature Scot that they think there's value in crofters engaging with this and doing it themselves. What was your experience of that, and what do you think you learned from the process?
Yeah, I found it very straightforward. Obviously, I'm fortunate I've got a smartphone, so I was able to use the app. The maps were all pre-populated as soon as I opened it, so I didn't have to do any of the stuff that we've been looking at tonight. The thing that hasn't been mentioned, and I'm not sure, maybe it's been decided it's not very important, but for me, the really interesting thing was logging all the species of birds and mammals and flower species on the croft. I found that actually really quite enlightening. So I'm not sure whether that's just the Nature Scot part of the thing, or whether that information is going to be used, or so. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, because that was actually the time-consuming part. The mapping of habitats took 15 minutes, but going around the croft and photographing the plant species and logging them all was the time-consuming bit. So I would be interested to know if that's going to continue to be part of the scheme.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So for the whole farm plan, it is just it's just habitats that have to be mapped. That is all. So the plant and animal species that are on your crofts are over and above the minimum requirement for the whole farm plan.
It's just the Nature Scot app where you've got that availability, but we just thought it was a nice sort of addition so that people could engage even further with it. And if people want to map or put on bird species that they've seen in the fields, they can. So it's an add-on.
And there is an element within that as well. I think I'd be right in saying that the app could form the basis for future developments as well, and thinking about what options might be available further down the road for other aspects of the new agricultural support system. So yes, we're talking about the biodiversity audit just now, but that ability to record more information could form other measures further down the line, and it's that sort of flexibility that's been built in now.
That's correct. Yeah, so we've got map, measure, manage and monitor, and we're currently on map. At the moment. Yeah.
Grand. Yeah. And Nori, is there anything you'd like to come in there and say about recording of species and where that fits into this?
Well, I suppose what I would say is that, I mean, obviously, if you're trying to audit something, as Benji just said, if you're trying to audit something, you've got to be assessing quality in some way. So this is very much just habitat mapping, which is not any sort of audit, I think it's fair to say, especially if you're not actually mapping the actual area of a habitat in a field. If you're just saying this field is mostly heath or this field is mostly grass, which you can do within process, then it's not really necessarily giving a baseline, and it's not necessarily auditing anything, telling you what sort of quality you're dealing with. But you recognise that you've got to start somewhere, and mapping and getting people out onto their farms and thinking about what they got is pretty crucial. So I suppose there's a side of me that worries that if somebody doesn't need to do this until 2028, that's an awful long way down the road before we get to a point where people are actually recording something that can be used as a real baseline. But it's getting your head round mapping, digitizing maps and using apps is a complicated thing. So I think it's got to start somewhere. I think I'd maybe prefer that people, that we weren't looking at such a long time scale before we might see phase 2 of it. So I'd be quite interested in comment on that side of it, what comes next. But great that to actually have an app that you can use in the field will be fantastic, and I think will make people's lives much easier once they get into it. But I think recording species is really a pretty crucial thing. Anyone who's written farm environmental assessments for agri-environment applications, etc., it's the species that you list in a field that really tell you what's there, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, what you should really be looking after, whether it's the birds, whether it's wading birds, or whether it's species of plants, or whether it's butterflies. That's what really tells you it's biodiversity. So I think I would definitely encourage people to record as much as they can in terms of the add-on species and to map in as much detail as you can. Because, sorry, I'm hogging this a bit, but most of the biodiversity in many fields is concentrated in the corners, in the wet, that wee wet bit in the corner, that corner where it's not been ploughed in the past because it was too rocky. That's probably where some of the special species will be in plants. So if they're not mapped, then how you move forward from that gets trickier. So yeah, try and be as accurate as you can is all I can say.
Just apologies if I picked up wrong, but Liz, did you mention you were testing the app and that the land parcels had already become populated?
Yeah. As soon as I put in my BRN and my location code, the maps were there on the app.
And if it's only the maps that are required, like for the subsidy purposes, is that all required? I'm just wondering why we then need to go and map these habitats if they're already pre-populated. So on the RPID system.
Sorry, I meant that my parks, my fields on the croft were pre-populated, and then I had to go in and choose what kind of habitat they were.
The land parcels are on the app, but the habitats aren't. That's what you were having to do.
Right, and just going a stage further on technology, because I know myself personally, I've had areas of the croft being told they're ineligible, and they've actually marked them out as, say, it's bracken or it's some land feature that makes it excluded from any sort of like being eligible for a subsidy or such like. So if they have the technology to do that, why then do I need to go in and map an area that's been having bracken on it or having reeds if they can tell that already from the aerial photography they have already?
So when Liz did the trial, the POBAS trial, we pre-populated the boundaries. So when she applied, we knew who was coming in, so she got her field boundaries. What we have done already, if people have submitted a farm environment assessment over the past 3 years, if we could translate it across to the habitats now, we've captured them as best we could. So they're on there, they just need to be checked and then submitted. So there will be some pre-populated ones. We did try and pre-populate all the data, as Ian put in the chat, but we had an issue. Some of the scale the data was captured at doesn't fit when you're at field level, and it makes it's off. So it makes it all look wrong. So we had to take all that out because you're the crofter, you're the farmer, you're at the field. And if we give you data and say that's not where that is, the credibility of the whole system goes. So we had to remove all that data. And you know what's on your field, we don't. Now, the aerial photography, the reason we haven't, so you mentioned about bracken. We've captured ineligible features for ineligibility. We tried to bring them across, but the decision was made that we take everything out and then you capture what it is. Because what has happened, it was the predominant feature. If it was a big area, it was a dominant feature that was captured, so it would be known as scrub, but that wasn't the true habitat. The scrub area was the dominant one, so there would be different habitats to be captured. So it was to remove it all, and then you just put them in. And as Ian mentioned, this is the start, so this is to capture the basic. So you can actually, you could say, map the habitats. We're not going into detail in this in 2025. So as you go for improvement, that's when you start capturing the detail.
We looked at taking the information from the SAF. I think I put it in the chat already. But it didn't give us that full level of all the habitats there. So if you put in it was permanent grass, we didn't know if it was semi-improved, unimproved, all these different variations. So it was that kind of, we could have turned our back round to you and said it's that. But getting you to review that, we wouldn't know if you would have reviewed it if it was there or saying it was reviewed. So it was that start with a blank canvas and get that kind of start that educating piece of getting you to look at it yourselves and try to understand, actually, that's what that, we've come up with some definitions that we hope make sense to you as a practical farmers and crofters. So you can say, well, actually, that's what the habitat's called. And the description is, all right, it's grass that's been, hasn't or receives regular fertilizer or whatever it is, we call it improved or whatever it is, that's what it is in terms of a habitat name. So that was the whole reason behind it.
So Richard was trialing the NatureScot app, and he was only required to map the land under his own location code. So Richard's asking, for the purposes of the whole farm plan, is it just your own location code, or would you be including land parcels on other crofts which are sublet or subject to seasonal grazing agreements? So Ian, can you give us the definitive on that one?
Yeah. So it's any land that you've got on a permanent basis. So your seasonal land, no, but any sublets that you've got on a permanent basis, then yes, as long with your main croft, and not excluding your common grazing at the moment.
Got a couple of questions here about what this information is going to be used for. Alan's asking, will it lead to changes in policy and what we get paid for? And Sarah's asked in the chat there that given that this is base level and we need to be seen to make improvements going forward, so that there's that assumption is floating around that if people I think it's I think I'm fair to say it's a misconception, but Ian, you can jump in or somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, that payments going forward are going to be for improvements. There is still a commitment that people will continue to being paid for doing good, and that identifying where things are being done well already is still going to be rewarded under the system. Certainly as an underlying principle, I understand that to be there. Obviously we don't have the policy detail yet. And then Sarah goes on to suggest that idea that people are looking for making improvements, that they might underreport what they've got in their holdings at the moment. So just to wrap that up into a question, thinking about what is this information that we're gathering, what is it going to be used for, and what might the next steps be? And I'll come to Ian again first, but I will come to some of the other panelists as well.
So what it'll be used for first is mainly to help you. So when we do get the agricultural policy and new support schemes launched and up and running, having that habitat map and information in there will help you then identify areas that you can use to claim your support. So if we're thinking that the government commitment is, in the future 50% of funding will come towards doing things for nature and the climate, then being able to identify and having these already on your crofts will be a way of claiming your support. I would envisage, and don't hold me to this, but going forward for people that want to do the basics, so it's just continue to maintain it as habitats as they are, as you currently practice do them. You will continue to get your, let's call them base payments, with the environmental element in it, and then there will be the agri-environment schemes, the EECs of the future, for going that tier ahead. So that tier, I think we call it tier 3, tier 2 or tier 3. So that will be where you want to go that step beyond and do additional management that goes over and above kind of your normal, changes your normal practice to do enhanced management. I'm sure that's where we'll be heading for.
I think just within that though, Ian, there is going to be a need to continue to reward practice that is contributing towards habitats that are already in good condition. And I think that's going to have to be part of tier 3 as well.
Exactly. So the part of the tier 1, the base payment will be, because you already have those habitats and you manage them correctly, means you might not have to do something additional. So because they're there, because you've got, let's say, 2 hectares of species-rich grassland, that might be sufficient. You don't have to go over and above and take a bit of productive land out to do something, change with it. But these, it's all, it's just stargazing I'm doing. But yeah, exactly that. It will be that kind of rewarding you for best practice, basically, and not disincentivizing you for doing what you've been doing so well all these years and risking deteriorating habitat so that you can come again in 2 years' time to get bigger payments. So it's that balance in it, I think.
We can come to Benji next, and just if you could touch a wee bit more on where this goes next for Nature Scot in terms of gathering this data and information. And you talked about a few steps there that we're kind of on, and we're on mapping just now. And where does this go in the future, and how are we setting ourselves up for that?
Sure. So we're very much in the same boat, in waiting for the policy to guide us for a lot of this. But so we're currently on the mapping stage. You can produce your map, and looking forwards, we think that or we know that as part of the whole farm plan recommendations, there are going to be some form of condition assessments for those habitats. So we've put together that ability. So through the app and the website, you'll be able to do the assessments. So that's starting to look at the condition of those. The idea being, and again, we don't know the ins and outs of this, but there will be some sort of payments based off either maintenance, improvement, etc. So that's what we're looking towards. So you've got your map, you've got your assessments, and then those outcomes that will help you keep track of how things are going throughout that process. But yeah, there's a lot still on the table, a lot of development to be done. So yeah.
Could I just ask you, from the work that you did in engaging with the project so far, were there things that were brought up to your attention during the auditing process that made you think this is maybe what I could do with this information next, or did you know the stuff anyway? What's your reflections on that?
I think I missed out on some of the later developments. I thought I'd done the work, and there were later developments as the app progressed, of adding linear features and things like that. I mean, I'm still not, obviously nobody's quite clear what it's all about and what it's being used for. And I'm still, I suppose, a bit disappointed that it wasn't made clear that all the species mapping was actually not required. Because although I found it a useful process myself, it sounds like it wasn't actually necessary, and all I needed to do was map the habitat. So maybe the Nature Scot app folk need to make that a bit clearer when the thing goes live.
Benji?
Yeah, happy to answer that. So yeah, during the summer, we were just testing the app and the website. So we were really rolling it out to, first of all, try and answer that question: can we complete the mapping for the biodiversity audit? But in addition to that, we added these extra bits. So doing the habitat assessments, trying to look forward, and also the species, because we think it's quite important for people to start to consider those things. And whilst that data isn't being used at the moment, and you'll see through the privacy agreement that you sign when you go onto the app or the website, that it is staying with us, and that the map would be shared with Scottish Government. They're the only parties that data stays with. But the species data, yes, it's not a requirement of whole farm plan at this stage. But during that trial phase, we were just trying to trial the app as a whole, get that idea of what parts of it were being used, because it gives us a better idea of where we can go forwards with it. So yeah, we'll make that more clear, that those elements aren't required, and through the provision of our guidance, we're doing written and video guidance that will pretty much just tell you, how do I meet my minimum standard requirements in my biodiversity audit? So anybody who wishes to do just that can go on, complete that, and shut the laptop for the evening.
For the average crofter, the subsidy amounts available are small in relation to the effort required to qualify to make a claim. I can see the benefits for larger operations and the need for change. I chair my local grazings committee, and my experience to date is that crofters are sickened by the hoops they are having to jump through when they are not the real issue when it comes to carbon, damaging habitats and maintaining what they care for, etc. I can't help but think, if their subsidy payment is less than £5,000, they should be exempt from all the new audit requirements. Many don't have online access or email, and certainly won't download an app. There is a real risk that they'll miss out on subsidy, and that will have a negative impact on crofting and communities.
Yes, we were acutely aware of that on when we were working, and that's why we've identified the ways so that the audits and plans that are specific that you will be required to do can be done yourself without having to employ a third party, so at no extra cost other than your own time. On the previous sessions when we talked about carbon auditing, the panel members there were kind of highlighting the actual benefits that crofters can see, even the smallest of crofters can see from a carbon audit, i.e. being able to identify ways to save money. We've looked at ways to say, if a township does everything all together, that a township, one carbon audit covering a whole township, as long as everyone's involved in everything, that suits. So it saves individual crofters with that township doing their own. One carbon audit can do that bit. So, that's where we're getting to, or that's where we're at just now. Obviously, the whole farm plan will continue to progress, and we will learn lessons come 15th of May. We are continuing to talk with likes of Donald and other stakeholders on ways we can improve to make sure it meets the needs for everybody. And also, we will be changing the support framework, and we don't know what payments will be in the future and what levels will be, if there'll be with different environmental payments to be had, even identifying likes of, areas of peatland restoration on common grazings. There's different alternatives that could be open out there, that crofters can potentially see additional or alternative income streams, or potential for them, from carrying out these different audits and plans.
David Muir's asking about macro cropping. Macro cropping contributes to biodiversity. Geese can destroy 2/3 of the crop from germination to ripening seed. What consideration can be given to this type of biodiversity loss? I'll come to Benji on that one.
Short answer is on that. I don't know. I don't. In terms of our app, in terms of the biodiversity audit, it would still be mapped as MACA. And the way that the whole farm plan works is that it will be on a 5-year cycle. So anything that happens, you'll have to update your map within 5 years. So if it's a particularly bad year with geese, the next year, in terms of mapping, it's still going to be mapped as MACA. So for the biodiversity audit at this point, that doesn't change the way that anything's done. I can't answer the part on financial loss.
Ian McLean has asked, is there a goal to capture all crofts in this? What does good look like in 2025 SAF year and going forward? How are you going to be monitoring that going forward? And that's Ian or one of the Scottish Government team.
Yeah, so utopia would be, yes, all farms and crofts have done their habitat mapping by 2025. Realistically, we know that's not going to happen. So the end goal is 2028. So 15th May 2028, everyone must have carried out the habitat mapping for the permanent land. So that's where we're aiming to. But if we can encourage as many people to do it this year, that would be great. But we have got that transition period up until 2028 to get it all completed.
Because ultimately carrying out a habitat assessment on your land, and it's about getting to, the big benefit is it's just changing the lens that people look at their land with, I suppose, is one of the big benefits here. They're looking at it in a slightly different angle. I would really almost encourage people to do their habitat mapping in the summer, in June, July, August, when you can actually identify plants that are actually in flower, not try to do it in the middle of winter. You can map habitats in the middle of winter generally, but if you're trying to map a species-rich grassland and separate it from a bit of rough grazing or a bit of rush pasture, trying to do that, I do it all the time. Lots of people who are trained surveyors do it. and identifying plants from dead leaves in the middle of winter is not the easiest thing in the world. So I would just maybe encourage people not to, well, you could do the basic mapping this year and then, but really look to, in the summer, get out at the right time of year when you can actually identify those orchids. You'll find those interesting plants, see what birds you've got. Do that in the spring and the summer, and you'll end up with something far more valuable to yourself, I would suggest, than trying to knock it off in the winter, if you like. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful advice there, Nori, and it's something that Benji's put in the chat there. It's obviously something that came up during the testing process. I certainly know I found it when I was leaving things to the last minute and then realizing that it was a bit harder to identify the different species in the grassland. So definitely better to be doing it at the right time of the year. So Benji, you were saying there that there's going to be timings in the app.
Yeah, I mean, so that was just one thing with our trial was that, you know, we had to do that trial at that point. We also were trialing these habitat assessments, so they weren't being done necessarily at the right time of year, and a lot of people did find that difficult. But that doesn't reflect on the way that it should be, which is that they would be done at the appropriate times of year. So we've actually got guidance on when to do those, and it sort of tells you which habitats to assess at what times, and you've got certain months that those can be done in, good months and not so good months, and then when absolutely not to do that.
Great. Okay, well, I think we'll draw things to a close there. Thanks for all our speakers and panelists for what was a really interesting session, and hopefully clarified a few things. There's undoubtedly going to be more questions, and please feel free to keep on feeding those into us, and also providing any feedback on this webinar. The next webinar in this series is on carbon audits, which is when, Celia?
I think it's the 4th of February.
4th of February, yeah. Very good. Right, thank you all for coming.